こ涙がこぼれないように思い出す春の日一人ぼっちの夜 Well, let me tell you a story about a man named Jed. Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. Then one day he was shooting at some food when up through the ground come a bubbling crude. Oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Oh, Mickey, it's a pity you don't understand. You take me by the heart when you take me by the hand. Oh, Mickey, you're so pretty, can't you understand? It's guys like you, Mickey. Oh, what you do, Mickey, You break my heart, Mickey. And I could tell you why the ocean's near the shore. I could think of things I never thunk before, and then I'd sit and think some more. I wouldn't be a nothing, my head all full of stuffing, my heart all full of pain. I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain. And what the bloody heck was all that about? Just singing for no reason. No good reason at all. Anyway, this is September 1st. You know what that means? Halloween Horror Nights happens this month. We don't have to say next month anymore. It's going to be right this month, just week after next in Orlando. Next week in Japan. Oh dear, it's exciting. And first I have to show off my t-shirt. It's a Halloween Horror Nights t-shirt from 2009, ripped from the silver screen. It's the Bill and Ted Excellent Halloween Adventure shirt from that year. Now that I'm done showing it off, we can go back to history. The history of Halloween Horror Nights 23. What evil has taken root? It's been a while since I've done these videos. This is my 13th, oh lucky number, 13th video in that series for Halloween Horror Nights from 2013. How appropriate. And what house? Let's make more lucky. 7. The 7th house to the event. I covered 6 houses. There were 8. So this is the 7th house. And it was one of the original houses located in Sprung Tent number 1. It was called Urban Legends La Llorona. Ooh. Well, what's an urban legend then, in case you don't know? An urban legend, well, it's sort of a modern-day folk tale. The sort of things you tell around the campfire to scare each other. Oh, I remember when I was a little boy going to camp. Christian service camp of all things. One of my camp counselors seemed like a big man to me when I was little, but he was probably only a teenager, probably maybe only 15 or something, working on his summer break to getting some extra cash, watching a bunch of screaming little kids. Anyway, he told the story. There'd been an escaped lunatic, yeah, from a local mental installation, and he was lurking around the very area, yes, and there had been stories about he got out once before, and that time he came to a camp just like this one, and a tent just like this one, a little boy just like you, Jimmy, sitting over there by the back of the tent just like you are right now, and he comes up behind with a machete, and he slides it right through the side of the tent, impaling the lad, ooh, right there, pulling it back before the kid even knew it. He was dead, falls over, blood everywhere. Everyone screams, ah! Yes, terrifying little kids. Stories like that told in the early 70s were probably inspiration for movies like Friday the 13th. Think about it, yeah? That's urban legends have done a lot for our horror cinema and horror, everything from Halloween to of course, any film about Bloody Mary, but it's quite a bit. And of course, these are modern day stories. They always happen to someone that you know, or someone you know whose friends, relatives, brother-in-law that's really happened to them, supposedly. All kinds of crazy stories. There's all the famous ones, the guy with a hook for a hand. There's the one about the girl who's in a car and her boyfriend are making out, and he hears something funny. He goes outside. She doesn't come back. She hears scratchy noises on the roof of the car and drippy noises. She freaks out, goes out, takes a look. Oh my goodness, there's a boyfriend hanging dead over the car. His fingers scratching the roof, his blood dripping down. Then there's the ones that happen in girls' dormitories. A lot of those, you know. They wake up and, oh, aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights? Or the one about, well, you know, she thinks her doggy is licking her hand all night, and then the scientist finds her dog dead, and there's a sign saying, humans can lick too. You know, that, all of those. And of course, the most famous urban legend, where you go to the bathroom mirror at night with a candle at midnight and say the name 3 times. You know, the one that's a cocktail with tomato juice and vodka. Not going to say it now because I'm getting a bit superstitious, but she was an icon for HHN one time. Good old Bloody Mary. Oops, I said it. Anyway, not going to say it again because we say Bloody Mary 3 times. You say Bloody Mary one more time. Ah! Exactly. So that's the story. It's not a mirror anyway. It's a sort of reflective surface. Holy fuck! Did I fuck myself? Anyway, all those wonderful stories, and they have occasionally popped up at horror nights before. So that's what urban legends are, but. Does La Llorona fit an urban legend? This is a Mexican folktale. It's not a modern day story at all. It's like, goes back like a couple hundred years in old Mexico. If anything, it's not urban, it's rural. And it's like, you know, I would call it an actual legend. You know, an actual legend. It's got its roots, really, in ancient legends. La Llorona is sort of like the crying woman, sort of like the dark mother archetype you see in ancient mythologies from Kali in India and Hinduism, modern, still practiced today, or grandmother death in Polynesia. There's a movie coming from Disney called Moana. Isn't it amazing? Featuring Maui, the demigod. But you know, in the Hawaiian legends, Maui had a lot of great feats where he would do stuff for humanity, like, you know, he took the sky, because the sky used to be like right down here, and everyone had to like walk around like this, because if you couldn't stand up straight, you'd hit your head on the thing. And so Maui took the sky, picked it up, all pushed all the way up, put it on top of some mountains, so it was up there now. Then people could stand up straight. Oh, look, we can stand up straight. Look, we can see everybody. See, Maui did that. He also took his magic fish hook, dug up all the Hawaiian islands out from the Pacific, put them up on top where you could, you know, otherwise you'd have to be underwater swimming around the fish, you know. So that was all great stuff he did for humans. And one of the things, his last great feat was to grant immortality to us all. So he went up to Grandmother Death, who was the evil hag. This is the Dark Mother. She's both the creator of life, the source of life, but also the taker away of life. It's a sort of archetype. So this is a similar character, and she's the grandmother, but she's also death. And so he has to go to her to get the secret of immortality. She has it hidden inside her body, and she's sleeping underwater at the bottom of the sea, and he goes there, and her mouth is open. And so she goes into her big mouth with big nasty teeth. Climbs through there to try to find the secret of immortality, like a pearl and an oyster, pull it out so that humans can become immortal like the gods. Isn't that wonderful? But she wakes up and he's halfway in, and she goes, chomp, 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 chomp. Maui gets bitten in half. I see a kitty. There's a kitty lurking back there. Look out for the kitty. Bob is back there. That was the end of Maui as a mortal man. After that, he joins the gods in paradise, like Hercules, you know. Transitions up to immortality that way. Hard way of doing it, to die physically in a rather nasty way, get bit in half. But that's how he stopped being a demigod and became a full god. That's the end of Maui on Earth, though he never made immortality for humans. So that's it then. So about Maui, and the Dark Mother, as I said, is an archetype all throughout history. But for La Llorona, the most obvious would go back to ancient Greek mythology. Ancient Greek mythology, there was a person called Medea. No, not Tyler Perry in drag. That's too scary. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the original Medea. She was a Greek princess, lived on an island with her father, but she also was a demigoddess, granddaughter of the sun god or something, so she had some divine, and she was a witch. She was a high priestess of the witch goddess Hecate, so she had all kinds of sorcerous magical powers, see. Now, she was a princess on... Uh-oh, there's a cat. She climbed right up on my shoulders, practically. Hello, Bob, you funny cat. Yes. Interruptus catus. Yes. Felis catus interruptus is what we have suffering here. Anyway, as I was saying, the island where she was princess, on the little Greek island, was where they kept the golden fleece, the marvellous mystical object. And so Jason, the big Greek hero, comes to get the golden fleece. That's his quest, right? So he goes to get the fleece, and there's a big serpent, dragon, nasty sharp teeth, guarding it. Well, Medea falls madly in love with Jason and betrays her family, puts a spell on the dragon, make her go to sleep, but she wants to make sure he gets the fleece, so she kills her own brothers. Stab, 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 knowing it caused an uproar in the palace, and then she runs off with Jason. They escape with the fleece. They go back to Jason's own kingdom. She becomes the queen. Isn't that lovely? Except Jason's thinking, this chick is pretty dark. Maybe yeah. So he starts messing about with another less homicidal princess. Except while that's going on, Medea finds out. She gets pissed. I mean, what was he thinking? You know, she's this, you know the old saying, bitches be crazy. It could have been written about Medea. So she loses her mind, and she decides to seek vengeance on them, but not anything to poor Jason or the girl he's messing with, but with Jason's children, her own sons, which she had with Jason when they were married. And she kills both of her own kids, murders them, and to get revenge on her husband, then flies off in a dragon chariot into parts unknown. So this is one of the great archetypes, one of the great types for La Llorona, because this is the legend of the Dark Mother who will murder her own children to get what she wants, to get at her lover. And she... And there have been operas, and ancient Greek tragedy plays, of course, and operas and musicals. They did a musical with Audra McDonald called Mary Christine a few years ago on Broadway. They updated the story, moved it to New Orleans and made it about voodoo, but it was still the same story. So La Llorona herself, well, the legend of the Weeping Woman is that there was this woman back in Mexico a couple hundred years ago, and her own husband ran off or died or whatever, and she had 2 children, lovely children, but she, of course, was a lone widow, either a widow or abandoned, whatever it was, and she wanted another husband. And of course, she found a young man that she was madly in love with. She wanted to, and he didn't want anything to do with a woman who came with baggage, 2 kids. So she thought, well, the kids are the problem. Let's get rid of them. So she takes her 2 lovely children and drowns them. And she thinks now everything's all right, and the boyfriend will be madly in love with her, and they can get married, no problems anymore. Except he's like, you drowned your kids. I want nothing to do with you, crazy woman. I'm running, crazy puta. I'm running away. So he runs away. Okay, and so she's all distraught. She's lost everything now. She doesn't get her husband. She doesn't get her children. Everything's gone. She goes insane. She drowns herself. Now she's lost even her own life, so she can't, she's now cursed, and so she comes back as a horrible ghost, and she roams in the countryside. Her own children were martyred, of course. They were good children, so they go to heaven, and so she can't find them here on earth floating around the afterlife, so she's wandering around looking for her lost children, and since she can't find her own, she comes after yours. Basically, she's sort of a boogeyman, the Mexican parents telling the little kids, scaring them to be good. If you don't, say your prayers every night and do your chores and mind your parents and be good little boys and girls, La Llorona will come for you, and she will catch you and take you and drown you and make you into a ghost like herself, and then you'll be with her forever. So that's the terrible story of La Llorona. Now, a word on the pronunciation. The word Llorona spelled L-L-O R-O-N-A, I believe. Yes. And the L-L in Spanish is another letter. Okay? Now, in classical Castilian Spanish, where people tend to lisp a lot, because everything is... in classical Castilian Spanish, the L-L is sort of a ya sound, a sort of L-Y, ya. But, it's rarely pronounced that way outside of certain parts of Spain. This part of the world, in Latin America, the Western Hemisphere, it's usually pronounced as a Y. So it would be Llorona. It's not Llorona, but Llorona. Except there are some places where that becomes more like Llorona with a J sound. In other parts of the Spanish-speaking world, it becomes more of a J sound, Llorona. Okay, so which way do we pronounce it? Well, I always said Llorona. When they first announced the house, I said La Llorona, right? Then I listened to the wonderful music of Rebecca Del Rio, and she sang Llorando. You know, she sang with a J, so I was saying Llorona maybe. Is it Llorona or Llorona? I'll wait to see. And of course, this wasn't the first time that she showed up at Horror Nights, because a couple of years earlier in Hollywood, they had a La Llorona scare zone, and they called her La Llorona then. Then they had a haunted house. Then they had another haunted house. The same year we had one here in Orlando. And so they did it pretty, you know, our house was similar but not identical to theirs, you see. So I was thinking La Llorona, but then when I went to the haunted house, the first time I visited the actual house, Sprunk at number 1, they had like a voiceover intro as you go up toward the house. You hear this woman talking about the story of La Llorona, and when she pronounced it Llorona, La Llorona, ja, the ja, okay, not ja with a J, not Y with a, but more of a ja sound. So that's why I've always called it La Llorona ever since, because that's the way they pronounced it at the house itself. So that's what I say, La Llorona, okay, that's why I've been pronouncing it that way. Now, the house itself, oh my God, I love this house. Some people didn't like it, and it's funny because this was promoted heavily, almost like one of the IPs, especially for the Hispanic community, the Spanish-speaking community. On the Spanish website, they featured this. They even had her own T-shirt, so they gave her a lot of press. They had, they also, I forget if it's Univision or Telemundo. One of them is owned by Universal Comcast, and so that was the one that helped promote it as well. Whichever company it was, I think it's Telemundo, but I'm not certain. I have to go back and check which one is part of the Universal Comcast NBC family of television stations, cable channels. But anyway, the house itself, as you walk up, it's like this beautiful little Mexican village. There's a magnificent facade, like an old church in Mexico, and they have a well, and they have carts and donkey carts with all kinds of flowers. It's like going to the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot Center when you go inside the pyramid and they have the whole thing. That's what I felt like. And I should be hearing right now the music, not what they have now, not the bullshit they have now with the Brazilian parrot. Why do they have a Brazilian parrot in the Mexico Pavilion? Jose Carioca is from Brazil. He's not even Mexican, for fuck's sake. Okay, the Pancholito, or whatever his name is, the rooster, he is Mexican, and Donald Duck's an American. So only one of those three characters. They should get rid of those. It's this whole ruining of Epcot's World Showcase. But it used to be El Rio de Tiempo, the River of Time, and you used to go through there on that boat ride and used to hear the wonderful song. That's what it reminded me of. I thought, oh my God, this is just like that. And I expected to hear that. And I also was thinking of my second almost racist thought was that Cartman on South Park, when he was talking about Casa Bonita, you know, the wonderful themed restaurant in Colorado with the water slides and the diving into the pools and the gorilla and Black Bart's cave and the wonderful sopapillas, all the thing he was craving. Oh, I was thinking, yeah, Casa Bonita. Or even nowadays they have antojitos, but back then they didn't have that yet at Universal. So I was thinking it reminded me of that kind of stuff, and it was just made me laugh. So I was thinking, going into it, you go into the church, and it's just like you're in a little Mexican church. They even have holy icons. I mean, who expected to see, you know, the Virgin of Guadalupe as an icon at Horror Nights? They actually had the icon of the famous Virgin of Guadalupe up on the walls. Oh my goodness, who expects to see that in a haunted house here? And they have it's like, you know, it's a church, literally. You have the altar, you have the pews, and in the pews are little old ladies in black, you know, just like you'd find a real Mexican church. So some of these will get up and scream at you, because it might be La Llorona. And then up on the front you find it's a funeral, and there's a coffin with the two little dead children in it. Oh my goodness, and La Llorona is there screaming and crying. Horrible. Her eyes are all missing in blood. It's just nasty. So you go through, and you're like going through the Mexican, and you're going through the church, and there's like corridors, and there's statues that, you know, do the whole Weeping Angel shtick again. Again, they did the Weeping Angel shtick in there. I love that. And then you go a little bit further, and you're in the actual. And you can, I think there's a mirror, and it's like the old trick they did with Bloody Mary in one of the haunted houses in 18. They have like a mirror, and you see La Llorona floating in the mirror, and she looks real. It's almost like Bloody Mary or something. And she disappears, so it's a ghostly, transparent image type, almost like a hologram, but I think it's what they call a Pepper's ghost. So then you go on and you're in the village itself, and there she is. There's a dark figure above you. It might be her. But in the water, and there's water in the house. It's amazing. They got water in the house. They got a river flowing through the middle of the house. And you go over a little bridge, and in the water below you, there are the two dead kids floating in the water. Oh my goodness. And when I saw the two dead kids floating in the water, again, demented mind and slightly racist, I'm going, oh my goodness, it's like dead Diego and what's her name? Darla? No. The one from Nickelodeon, the kid, they're in the frickin' parade at Universal. And I can't remember their names. The boy's Diego, but the girl is like, oh damn it. I should remember that. Dora the Explorer, of course. Dead Dora and Diego is what I thought of, because that's what they look like. Dora and Diego, only dead and drowned. I thought, oh my God, it's the dead Dora and Diego house. That's a sick mind at work there, I'm sorry. Then as you go through the house, it gets more and more surreal and creepy. You go through caverns, and there's all kinds of stuff, and subterranean areas. And then there's the kids as ghosts, and La Llorona is again. But I thought it would end right then, but it kept going. I was surprised. The house was much longer than I expected. You went through more corridors and more caverns, and it gets creepier and creepier, more trees and roots and stuff. And La Llorona starts changing. Instead of having a human face that's all ghostly and creepy, it becomes sort of a horrible horse skull face. Like it gets all elongated and twisted, and it becomes this horrible thing like a horse's skull, only it gets longer and more twisted, and mouth opens, and it becomes this horrible thing. Remember when on Beetlejuice, when the Maitlands pulled their faces out and did all that stuff? It's sort of like that, only more horrific looking. So it's kind of really bizarre. She becomes a strange, more monstrous creature, and as you continue into the caves, into whatever afterworld, and there's lots of water pouring around and mist and stuff. It's really quite nifty. There's one where you go through a mist tunnel and you almost can't see because there's fog in the house. So it's actually quite brilliant. So I really like the house a lot. And of course, when you finally get out of all of that, you scan your card for Legendary Truth. Well, I've completed the entire house in one video, exceeding 20 minutes. But there is one more thing, the cocktail for La Llorona. I'll get to that in video 14. I'll start off with the cocktail that I created for the house, and then move on to the final house, which was Afterlife Death's Vengeance in 3D. So until then, have fun